L.A. Marzulli is an author, lecturer and filmmaker. He's penned 13 books, including the Nephilim trilogy, which made the CBA bestsellers list. L.A. has teamed up with film producer Richard Shaw to create the Watchers series. There are now 11 installments in the series, and Watchers 7, UFO Physical Evidence, won UFO Best Film and the People's Choice Awards at the UFO Congress in 2014. He also has a monthly magazine which is widely read. In fact, anything UFO related, and LA is on the trail. Let's welcome him in. Hello, LA.
Hi, Dean. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Now, it's a real pleasure. Well, today I thought we could concentrate on an aspect of ufology that has really become popular in recent years, and it's the UFO Bible connection. But, you know, trying to find a starting point is a little bit difficult. So where do you start with the Bible and the UFO connection?
That's a really good question, and I'm not sure I know the answer to that. But I would say this. It starts back in Genesis 3:15. In other words, unless we understand that we're in the midst of a cosmic war that has been raging in an unseen dimension for we don't know how long, millennia, all right? And there are good guys and bad guys in this cosmic war. The Bible illustrates that, talks about it, and that's that thread that continues from Genesis to Revelation. Most people don't look at it that way. That's why I wrote the book, The Cosmic Chess Match, because in fact, that's what it is. And these two opposing forces are going at it even into modernity. So a good place to start would be Genesis 3:15, where the Most High God says to the dragon, your offspring will be at war with the offspring of the woman. He will crush your head, you will bruise his heel. So that's a very charged, pregnant statement. So let's sort of, dissect this a little bit. The dragon is this entity which, this is why the serpent motif is all over the globe, by the way. The dragon motif, the serpent motif, all over the globe. So the dragon is there. He knows that the seed of the woman, someone is going to come and crush his head, take his kingdom from him. So he doesn't like that thought. So the rest of the biblical narrative, in my opinion, deals with the coming one who will crush the dragon's head and everything the dragon does to prevent that. And when you start looking at the biblical narrative in that light, which is what the Cosmic Chess Match, the book, does, it changes everything. Because what we see is move, counter move, move, counter move, move, counter move between the dragon and the Most High God. And the protocols of this heavenly war we're not privy to them. We get glimpses of them from time to time and throughout scripture, but we don't get the playbook. So we can only kind of look at some things which are here, and then we don't understand, well, why does he allow that? Why doesn't he just do this? But the protocols of this engagement are set in a way that they're going to play this thing out. And that's where we are in modernity.
So are we talking spiritual entities or physical entities?
Well, spiritual entities can certainly be physical entities. In other words, let's just go back to the biblical narrative. For those of you who believe in the narrative, this might, you'll just shrug your shoulders and go, yeah, okay. For others, this may be something different. But when Jesus is crucified and he's killed, 2,000 years ago, and he rises again from the dead, according to what Christians believe. Of course, that's my belief too. But he shows up to the apostles. The apostles are all in this upper room. They're all freaked out. Maybe we're next, right? What's going to happen? And this is all, the documented evidence of it. So he comes in through the wall. He just comes right in through the wall. And we know you can't do that, right? Mm-hmm. And he appears to them, and they're all freaked out. They think it's a ghost. And he goes, not so fast. What do you guys got to eat? He sits down and he has a meal with them. They bring him some fish and bread, and he eats it with them. And then he just vanishes again. Hello! I mean, that's just like, when we look at that, see, the problem is most, especially in modernity, most people in the West have this really truncated view of the supernatural. And it's so much more complex than anything we can possibly conceive. So we've got this really narrow, truncated view. Angels are on clouds with harps and all this crazy stuff, which has nothing to do with anything. First of all, angelic beings are so powerful that when they do appear, people do face plants. In fact, that's literally what the biblical narrative says. It says this, I'm quoting, and when the angel appeared, I fell on my face. So that's a face plant. I mean, we can tap dance around that, but it's a face plant. So these entities are really, really powerful, both the good ones and the bad ones. When the bad ones appear, and I spoke at the Arkansas UFO. I was the keynote there this year, which is a real honor for me. So I spoke to the crowd, and I just said, how many of you think it's okay to abduct a 5-year-old and implant them? Not one hand went up. Not one. Like 500 people in the room. Not one hand. They all know, viscerally, instinctively, that it's not cool to abduct a 5-year-old and put something in his body without his parents' consent. They all know that. And I looked at him and I said, you just proved my point. What are you guys doing? What are you guys doing here? You know it's not a good thing. So why are we saying that these entities are benevolent and we just don't understand them and all this other stuff? So, look, the whole UFO thing is a saying I wrote years ago, real, burgeoning, and not going away. And that's, a 25-year-old phrase, whatever it is. And they're here. Disclosure is happening. Things are happening. But I've called it, and I've called it this for 20 years, this is the coming great deception. This will change the entire planet, and everyone will just go ding like this and, believe whatever these entities tell us to believe.
Right. So fast forwarding all the way through to Revelation, and with an apparent, the UFO phenomena appearing to just be ramping right up at the moment. And I'm not sure whether that's got to do with the technology people have got now and are capturing more stuff on film and camera, but the coming of Christ, we've seen so many false alarms over the years, but do you think we may be getting close to that point now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a date setter, but I mean, all the punch list he gave us to look at is happening right under our noses for those of us who are tracking with this stuff. The majority of people on the planet have no idea what that punch list is, nor do they care. Many people just kind of slough it off as, it's stained glass windows and people with robes and, celibate priests that are buggering the 8-year-olds behind the confessional and just weird stuff, right? But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a supernatural experience that changed the entire Western world as we know it, turned the thing on its head. So something happened in antiquity and still happens in modernity. It happened to me 39 years ago, changed my entire life. So I know it's real. It's real for you, but it might not be real for me. Well, that's a convenient cop-out. Of course it's real for you, but people just have to ask for it. When people ask for it, then he comes in and things begin to change. So I think the punch list is there. The wars and rumors of wars, check. Earthquakes in diverse places, check. Famines and pestilence, check. Signs in the sky and the heavens, check. Men fainting from fear of what is coming upon the earth, not yet, but we're getting close to that maybe. Volcanic activity is through the roof. Same thing with the earthquakes, through the roof. The whole thing with climate change, which I don't believe in for one stinking second. Now we're talking like the coldest winter we've had in America's history. Oh my God! So what is it? I mean, you guys just keep doing this through the years, and you just change your thing. Do I believe that people should be stewards of the planet? Absolutely. Am I for conserving the rainforest and the redwoods? Absolutely. Conserving the dolphins and the whales? Absolutely. Maybe we should, instead of legislating straws, right? Maybe we should all figure out, well, why don't we just clean up the crap on our own beach?
Yeah.
Why don't, instead of you guys legislating us, why don't we just go? I've been to Peru numerous times. It's a place of pigsty. It's a pigsty. You can't go swimming in the ocean. There's just trash everywhere. In fact, we shamed the local authorities because we went out and started picking up the trash on the beach. Our team of about 6 or 7 people down there. We're all picking up the trash from the beach. The next day, all these federales descended on the beach and started picking up the trash. It's like, dare they be overrun by the gringos. But that's what we should be doing. We should have, especially Christians, should have this awe and respect for the environment and all things in it. because, all God's creatures great and small. But I mean, it's true. All God's creatures great and small. If you believe in a God and you believe in the environment and the oceans and the complexity of life and the unbelievable magical properties of the DNA, one would have to point back to the Creator and go, wow, you've really done something well. And we've pretty much messed up the room. We've completely screwed it up on so many levels. It's like, you got to come back to fix it because we can't fix it. So.
What about the? I mean, we've had to live with a long-term UFO cover-up, and I guess most people, when they hear the words UFO cover-up, think of the government and I guess the deep state or someone working behind the scenes, but no one really talks about the religious UFO cover-up. I mean, that's been going on for a long time.
Well, define what you mean by the religious UFO cover-up.
Well, for example, I mean, the Catholic Church, for example, and I know they recently have come out and said a couple of things which have surprised a lot of people, but, disclosure is probably going to, I'm not sure whether it's going to hurt religion, but it's going to upset a lot of people.
It'll collapse religion.
Collapse it.
It will absolutely, utterly collapse the world religious systems as we know it. And I've written about this extensively. That's why I call it the coming great deception. It is the mega letter. It is the lie that we read about prophetically, written thousands of years ago, because they, humankind, did not believe the truth. What is the truth? That God created everything. He says them a lie. What is the lie? Well, the springboard to the lie is the Darwinian paradigm, which was just kind of manufactured about 150 years ago or whatever. It's like, well, all this just sort of happened over billions of years. Well, isn't that convenient? No one knows where it started from. No one knows where the first self-replicating molecule, happened into existence. Nobody knows. Nobody knows where we are or what this is in the universe. If the United States of America is analogous to the universe as we know it, are we in Dallas, New York, Los Angeles, Walla Walla? Nobody has a freaking clue. So first of all, we don't know where we are, which should keep every one of us up all night scratching our heads going, gee, what is this really? Some people believe that we're in a holographic universe. I do. So the fact that the prophetic message states unequivocally that God sends them a lie because they did not believe the truth. We already talked about was the truth that the God of the Bible, the Creator, spoke everything into existence, specifically Jesus, the Messiah, that Christ spoke everything into existence. In the beginning was the Word. He was with God from the beginning. All things were created through him, and without him, nothing that was made was not made. So, okay, well, that's interesting. That's, some guy high on mushrooms out in the desert writing this thing. So we won't believe that. Okay, don't believe it. Believe in Darwinism. So that's the lie, which is the springboard, which the neo-Darwinists are already looking out there. They're already looking for panspermia. Where's our creators? Film after film after film. So when they finally show up, they'll have a couple of things. They'll have a DNA upgrade, which is a little chip that you'll get, planted in your hand or on your forehead or whatever. It'll be basically invisible. There'll be no entry mark to it. And it will change your DNA. And it will make you live 300 to 500 years disease-free. Wow, the line for that will be around the block. Okay? And it'll also give us the same energy that pilots the craft. So everybody's going, yay! And they'll stop all the wars, and they'll create this one world government and a one world religious system. But the religions as we know them today will just completely free fall. They'll collapse of their own weight, in my opinion. This is the coming great deception.
Okay. I read a few years ago, theologian Patrick Cook once said that the gods have been mistaken for aliens, as opposed to what Eric von Däniken said, where aliens have been mistaken as gods. I mean, have you got a view on that?
Well, I mean, it's funny how everybody keeps trying to define, the puny human that lives to 80 years or a maximum 120 years is going to tell us all about this infinite being who allegedly spoke everything into existence. I mean, no one knows where we are. I already stated that. Nobody knows. And that in itself is incredibly alarming. So for all the smart people that are out there, you don't even know where you are. You don't even know, no one knows where human consciousness is stored. Nobody knows. It's not in the pituitary gland. It's not in the brain. You can dissect the brain. There's not a little guy going, hey, here I am. It's not there. It's not there. So no one knows what consciousness really is. And how is it if I say to you, hey, remember the first girl you kissed? Bam, why is it there? How does your memory instantly call that up without you even thinking about it? How does all that work? We have no idea. Now we can reduce it, well, it's the synapses in the brain and electrical impulses. Come on. That's just the mechanics of it. That's spirit interfacing with some sort of mechanical device. But this is what I mean. This whole thing is incredibly mysterious. So, the ancient astronaut theorists are selling us ancient aliens that, aliens seeded us here and they were the gods our ancestors worshiped. I get all that. And when you go back and you look at mythology and the gods of Babylon and Greece and everything else, these were real entities. In most cases, they were fallen angelic beings masquerading as entities. And they had a lot of power and they did a lot of stuff. I get that. But that's by the whole thing of prophecy. So for listeners out there, for your viewers, before you throw this out with the bathwater, you got to understand that the prophetic messages that we find in the biblical prophetic text are thousands of years old, and yet we see, as the late Chuck Missler would say, it's an integrated message system. All these prophecies, and there are hundreds of them, dovetail together and integrate with each other. So the odds of that happening by something not supernatural, I mean, it's not the invention of mankind. 66 books, 40 authors written over thousands of years, and it's an integrated message system. That in itself is absolutely stupefying. So there is a creator. There's one guy up there who's the real God and has made himself known for those who want to partake. But in the meanwhile, all these demigods, who are the fallen angels, want to be worshipped. And they set up shop at Teotihuacan, at Chichen Itza, at the Great Pyramid of Egypt, all over, in places like Zambujaro in Portugal, places like Stonehenge in England, places like Karnak, places like the Serpent Mound in the Americas, or Cahokia, largest mound in the United States, and other places. And they give knowledge and power, and they do stuff, and they're allowed to operate for a certain period of time, and then it all goes away.
Mm-hmm. Now, just go back to the Bible. You mentioned 66 books, but it could have been so much more. There's been books that have been left out or taken out of the Bible over the years, and I've managed to read a few of them. You can find them online, but why do you think that was? Are they trying to hide something?
No, because this stuff is readily available. There's actually, you can go back and look at all the church councils until the Great Schism happens, and then between the Eastern and Western Catholic Church, and they both excommunicate each other, and all hell breaks loose to the 20th century. I excommunicate you. I excommunicate you. It's just like, leave it to the bumbling human being and completely screw everything up, which is what we're so good at doing. But the book of Enoch is an incredible book. It's quoted about 70 times in the Tanakh, the Old Testament. It's quoted in some of its passages, verbatim in the book of Jude. If you were going to read anything, read the book of Enoch, Enoch 1, because it gives us this really incredible insight into the antediluvian world and the whole seed war, Genesis 3:15, and this whole heavenly war that I've been talking about from the get-go. The book of Enoch just amplifies the heck out of it. And I use that book and quote it extensively, and even make an argument that, gee, I wonder why it's not in the canon, because it kind of was in and out. All the rabbis knew about it. And it went missing really till R.H. Charles found it. So all this stuff has a way of coming back in. But, you get things like Bel and the Dragon, which is in the Catholic Bible, but not in the Protestant Bible. Well, you're free to read it, and you can, discern for yourself whether this is inspired or not inspired. So that's the deal. But the 66 books pretty much, let me put it this way. The Tanakh, the Old Testament, that's pretty much set in stone. Although Enoch came in and out of that, as well as, the Maccabees and other stuff. So, it depends which Bible you pick up. If you pick up the Ethiopian Bible, it's going to be different than the Russian Orthodox, Greek Orthodox. They all add and subtract things. The bottom line is the central focus of it is man is fallen and there is a Redeemer. That's the deal. That's the whole stinking deal. Because man's fallen, he's now ruled by the dragon, but there's someone that's going to come and crush the dragon's head and redeem man back to himself. That's the deal. Mm-hmm. So whatever books, that you can pick, you can name whichever ones kind of talk about that, then those are the ones that were kept. The ones that don't went by the wayside for the most part.
Yep. I got one for the self-improvement, positive mental attitude crowd too. The Book of Thomas, if you ever get a chance to get your hands on it or find it somewhere.
I read it. Yeah.
Yep. All right. So now, you talk a lot about the Nephilim, and you've done a lot of work on the Nephilim. How do they figure in all this?
Well, the Nephilim is the offspring of the fallen angels and the women of Earth, human women of Earth, creating a hybrid entity known as the Nephilim. So you've got an angelic being, which is immortal, taking his DNA and mixing it with the DNA of humans and creating this hybrid entity known as the Nephilim. What's interesting, as Dr. David Jacobs talks about this, walking amongst us. There are hybrids that we talk about in my films, witnesses, they're here. And Dr. Jacobs' book certainly outlines that and gets into that. They are here. And this all goes back to Genesis 6. So why is the Nephilim there in the begin with? Because, and here's the whole nuts and bolts right here. This is it. The dragon knows someone's going to come and take his kingdom from him, crush his head. So just a little short while later, he figures, well, we'll just contaminate the bloodline. Then this entity can't be born. I win, checkmate. Okay? And he almost succeeds, except for 8 people. So the fallen angels, 200 of them, descend in the days of Jared on Mount Hermon. And they begin to take wives and they contaminate the genome. They also begin to fornicate and mingle their seed with the seed of the animals. So now we're getting chimeras, minotaurs, centaurs, all this kind of crazy stuff, which is the basic for Greek mythos. That's the Book of Enoch. And it's happening. And the counter move, that's the move by the dragon. The counter move is the flood of Noah, where only 8 people, who it says very specifically, Noah was pure in all his generations. It doesn't mean he was a good guy 100% of the time. He was like the rest of us, a schmuck. But his genealogy, his DNA was intact, wasn't contaminated with fallen angel DNA, nor was his wives, his sons or his sons' wives. There's a vetting process. Noah, your wife, your sons, and your sons' wives. It's said twice, Genesis 6 and I think in 7. Same thing. They all get onto the ark and they repopulate the earth. Now, is that a fantasy? Every single culture on the planet has a flood story. So you tell me, why is it the Chumash Indian in California, pre-Columbian, has that same flood story? Why is that intact? And the Chinese have it in their ancient glyphs. their proto-Chinese glyphs talk about their word for, I think, flood. And I'm sure I'll be corrected on this. I don't remember, so I'm just kind of winging it here. But their glyph for flood is a boat, right? A boat, and people on it, and there's something else. That's their word for flood, and it hails back to the time of Noah. So, is it a localized flood? No, I think it covered the whole earth, and it was incredibly cataclysmic. So, look, like I said, no one knows where we are and what this is.
It's almost like you've just got to sit back and basically be a spectator. And
on some level, you kind of look. I wake up in the morning, I kind of look out, and I just go, well, I'll be 70. I'll be 69 this year. Okay, so in 2020, I'll be 70 years old, and I realize, the glass is half empty. It's not half full anymore. It's half empty. I don't know how many more years I have, and so I try to create as many films and books as I can, on this subject to alert people, to awaken people into another reality, that there is a supernatural world and it's more real than the world around us now. But you're right, a spectator on some level for sure.
Yep. Now, what about the Mother Mary? I mean, she's been used over the years as an apparition that appears out of nowhere, but people who look more closely at it can tend to think that no, it's not her, it's something else.
Well, I did 2 films on Fatima, and we went there. We spent weeks over there in Portugal. We interviewed all sorts of people. There's a guy in Brazil right now who took the film, uploaded it, and he's like showing it to all these people for free. It's not on YouTube. It's on his own channel. You're just like, thanks a lot, pal. I see the way the game is played, but I spent a lot of money and a lot of time going to Fatima and reviewing it. It was a UFO event in my estimation. It was certainly not the Mary of the Bible, as we read. All this was dressed up in Catholic clothes, and it's been perpetrated over it's been 100 years now. So it's 101 years ago, 102 years, 2019. Mm-hmm. So 1917 is when the apparition. I mean, that's a 3-hour conversation because I studied it and I created 2 hour-long films on Fatima 1, Fatima 2. And what happened there, in my opinion, had nothing to do with the Mary of the Bible. But what Fatima does do is it sets a precedent for people to accept so-called sun miracles and apparitions. So in the beginning of the first film, I go, millions of people travel to Fatima every year. Millions of pilgrims circle the Kaaba stone in Mecca. Millions of Hindus celebrate Guru Puja. Millions of Buddhists worship at thousands of temples all over Asia. People have the right to believe what they want to believe. And we're not here to disparage anyone's belief system. However, we will delve into the phenomena that occurred in 1917 and deconstruct it and see if we can find another answer. So we take Mary off the table completely. We never, it's not, never even talk about it. All we do is focus on what did the apparition say? Why was it wearing a short skirt? Why is it that only the children could see it? And then all the strange phenomena that happened in and around the event when the flyby occurred. In other words, people are out there in the field waiting the sign. They'd heard there was going to be a sign, that the apparition was going to show the people a sign. So 70, 80,000 people are in a field in Fatima, on the moors of Fatima, waiting for the sign. No one knows what the sign's going to be. Finally, it's been raining all morning. The clouds part, the sun is there, but then another cloud comes in front of the sun, and out of that comes the spinning object, which then floats down to the ground and then spins back up. It does it 3 different times, and finally does a flyby over the heads of the crowd. And we all of our research with Fatima stems from the 1917 handwritten records done by Father Fiera. We don't go anywhere as past 1917. That's it. 1917 records, that's what we source from. Because Lucia, first of all, the other 2 seers, Jacinta and Francisco, die in the influenza flu. They die of the big Spanish flu thing that happens, okay? So they never even reached their teenage years. They're dead. So all you got is Lucia, who when she's 18, she's hustled off to a convent, given a vow of silence, and then she starts writing her memoirs, which include The Secrets of Fatima, which in my opinion is completely fabricated, 100% fabrication. There's no mention of any of that in the handwritten 1917 documents. What people look at is they say, I was out there and I looked up and saw a dull silver disc. Now that's in 1917 before the words UFO and flying saucer were used in the vernacular. So they look up and see a dull silver disc. We hear this repeated over and over and over again. Again, with all due respect to the Catholic Church and Mary, this thing has been dressed up in Catholic clothes. We actually have a photograph that was in the archives from 1917 that Jose Machado, we published it in the book, and it's in the film. We reveal it in the film. It's the smoking gun. And this photograph was taken by Joshua Benolio, who is a Jewish photographer who was out in the field in 1917. He took 12 photographs. So Jose Machado had access to the sanctuary at Fatima about 5 or 6 years ago. And in that, he's looking at the original glass plates. The original glass plates. Who the heck gets to do that? Are you kidding? In fact, when he went in there, get this, Steve, when he goes in there, no one knows where the glass plates are. It's just typical, isn't it? Well, I thought they were here, but they're not in this, and they're in a shoebox or in some box or something in some closet. It's just like, you just sit there and you shake your head, Well, but you can't look at them now. Anyway, Jose looks at him. He's only allowed to really discuss several of them. But he told me on the record, that there were problems with like 4 or 5 of the photographs. What he means by that, there was stuff in the photographs that shouldn't be there. The photograph that we were able to use, that he uses in his book, it shows the crowd at Fatima. And there's smoke over here, and the smoke billows up and rises, makes a left-hand turn, and then it stops. And right where it stops is a disc-shaped object. It's as plain as the nose on my face.
Okay.
It's like right there. That's a smoking gun. That is, and that photograph has never been seen in Portugal, okay? And it's never been seen in America, and we published it. It's in our film. We published it. I think it's a smoking gun. So, you show that to people and they just sit there and, what is it? Well, everything could be Photoshopped, though, eh? It's not Photoshopped, okay? It's the real deal. So that's what happened. And at the end of the film, we show this compilation of so-called sun miracles and apparition sites in modernity in the last 20, 30, 40 years. We show them like Zatoun, Conyers, Georgia, over in Africa, over in India, over in Egypt, everywhere. And it's this compilation. And I show this at conferences, and people were just like this. They had no idea. Not Ireland 2017. And the crowds go ballistic. The crowds who are experiencing the apparition or the so-called sun miracles go off the rails. No one's rebuking. No one's saying, in the name of the Lord rebuke you. In the name of Jesus, the Lord rebuke you. No one's saying that. No one's challenging it. Everyone's wailing and weeping, and it's crazy, crazy stuff.
Yeah.
I look at people and I go, okay, here we have a blob of light. That doesn't look like Mary to me. Does it look like Mary to you? So why are we rushing to say it's Mary? Why is that? Because it has a little blue light that looks like she's wearing a robe or something? That doesn't look like Mary to me. It looks like a blob of light with a blue thing down the side of it. Next, what's your next question? You know what I mean? So again, we're not trying to bag on anybody's religious belief. People can believe what they want to believe. But in my opinion, this is the harbinger of the coming great deception. And it shows how easily people can be deceived.
Yep. In closing, we're just about to end here, but okay, disclosure. So, things may suggest, and signs may suggest that we could be getting close to getting the truth, but I'm not so sure. Well,
I've been down the rabbit hole for a lot of years with guys like Bob Lazar, Colonel Hill, Jesse Marcel Jr., witnesses, abductees, the whole gamut. And then 2017 was the red letter day, a line in the sand, a line of demarcation, crossing the Rubicon, whatever analogy you want to throw in there. But when Tucker Carlson had Commander David Fravor, the former F-18 pilot, who states on the record when Tucker asked him, where do you think this craft was from? And Fravor looks right at the camera and says, whatever this was out of this world. So that's disclosure. We call that the first rung on the disclosure ladder. The second rung was when Luis Elizondo appeared. Between the first rung and the second rung, Tucker had Nick Pope, a whole bunch of people on the record talking about UFOs in general. But the second rung on the ladder was finally arrived at when Tucker asked Luis Elizondo this, in my opinion, which was a heavily scripted question. And Tucker says, in your opinion, does the American government have in their possession records from a crashed UFO? And Elizondo goes, yes. And Tucker asked him again, are you saying that the United States government has debris from a crashed UFO? And then Elizondo kind of hems and haws, really bad acting, Luis, and goes, well, my non-disclosure agreement forbids me to really answer this, but the short answer is yes. Well, Mr. Elizondo, with all due respect, you're a really smart guy, but you just blew out your NDA because you were allowed to blow out your NDA. So he says it twice, not a blink. The American people, not a blink, not a nod. Honey, what's for dinner? That's basically it. No one moved. So we're at the second rung. They're going to show the third rung, which I believe will be real footage of crashed discs, or even perhaps retrieval of so-called alien bodies. It'll be something like that.
Yep. I'm thinking disclosure is going to put a lot of us on the unemployment line.
I don't know about that.
So you still think there'll be a significant role for, I guess, guys like yourself?
Well, I mean, that all depends. I'm of the firm belief that that when that happens, I think those of us who are indwelt with the Spirit of a living God won't be here. That's beyond science fiction at that point.
Okay.
You've been smoking something that way. I get it. But the bottom line is, Jesus is walking through walls and he's appearing, and we read in the biblical narrative, people appear and disappear. Philip is taken from one place, put in another. Stranger things have happened, and because we don't know what this is or where we are, see, we've got this truncated view of the supernatural. There it is again. That's impossible. Well, it'll never happen because we have a truncated view of the supernatural, not realizing that if this whole thing, look, the God of the Bible says that he's going to roll up the heavens and the earth like a scroll. Is that an analogy, or is that something that he's really going to do? And if that's the case, and he's going to roll this thing up like a scroll and create a new one, are in fact we are in some sort of a holographic universe. Yeah. So there's a lot that we don't know. I think we.
Yeah, I often get the feeling that this time around humanity is like about take 3 or 4. I think it's all happened before. Maybe it's already been rolled up like a scroll on the past and started over again.
Well, I mean, people will say that, first of all, I'm not a young earther. I think that this thing is really, really old, millions of years old, first of all. And I realize that all the young earth creationists will have a cowl when they're saying that. But I also believe that there was a pre-Adamic race. And this whole thing, that pre-Adamic race was here, and there was some sort of a flood that wiped everything out the first time, and then he recreates everything. And then here we are. But honestly, Dean, we get this much of a picture that's like this much. Mm-hmm. And we just don't know. And nobody knows. And that's why we're on the quest, and that's why we keep doing what we're doing. And, we all have opinions, and at some point in time, truth will surface and be accepted, and the other stuff won't be. So we'll see.
All right. So what's in the works for you, book and film wise?
I'm going to release the new DNA film. It's the DNA results, the expert results on the DNA, the elongated skulls that we did in Peru. They're right in the back there on that table. Mm-hmm. See, we've got doctors, medical doctors, surgeons, anthropologists, archaeologists, chiropractors, all sorts of people come on the record, examine these things. And basically, I'll give you the punchline. It's genetic. It has nothing to do with cranial deformation or cradle headboarding. Now, they did that, and we know what those look like. And we actually show one of the skulls that we examined up in Vancouver Island, which was definitely cradle headboarding. You can see the difference right off the bat. So that's coming out, and then we go back on all this is on the Trail of a Nephilim series. That's the umbrella, the title, which is the umbrella for the whole entire series. On the Trail of a Nephilim. This will be the 4th film, and then I go right to 5 and 6.
Okay, all available on your website and places correct. Like Amazon?
Yep, correct. lamarzulli.net, lamarzulli.net.
Thank you, LA. It's been a pleasure.
Great, Dean. Thank you so much.
LA Marzulli joining us today, and certainly with plenty to say. And the Bible UFO connection is one that is a very fascinating topic, and really is being discussed a lot.